A Colombia man that was convicted in 1995 for killing 3 people is set to be executed in less than 48 hours. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chanel Porter. State leaders and concerned citizens have called on Governor Mike Parson at one last attempt to halt Ernest Johnson's execution. ABC 17's Layla Mitchell is live for us in studio tonight. And Layla, thousands across the state have signed a petition for mercy.
Yes, Chanel. So today I spoke to an advocate who is one out of thousands asking the governor to halt Ernest Johnson's execution. Johnson is scheduled to be put to death 27 years after taking the lives of 3 people while robbing a Columbia convenience store in 1994. His execution was granted a stay in 2015 because of a brain tumor. But now, in just 2 days, Johnson is set to be the first man executed in Missouri since May 2020.
We're asking that the governor grant him clemency and let him finish out his natural life in prison.
We're here today asking for clemency.
NIMROD Chapel, Missouri NAACP president, 2 members of Missouri Congress, the Pope, and over 23,000 others are petitioning to halt Johnson's execution.
Tirelessly.
Elise Max, state director for Missourians Alternative to the Death Penalty, told me Johnson's execution is both immoral and illegal.
It is not only immoral to execute Ernest Johnson, it's also illegal because Johnson has an intellectual and developmental disability.
In 2002, the Supreme Court made it illegal to execute someone with an intellectual disability.
But it left it up to the states to decide how they would define intellectual disability. And that's kind of where we're seeing a lot of issues with Johnson not getting his full due process.
The application for clemency sent to Governor Parson states Johnson meets the clinical and statutory definition for an intellectual disability, as he was born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, suffered abuse as a child, and operates at the equivalent of a 12-year-old boy in terms of independence and a 4-year-old boy for his daily living skills. Advocates fighting to save Johnson's life are not asking for him to be a free man.
Our ask is for a commutation to life without parole. So we're not saying that he's not culpable for the murders that happened in 1994. We're very sad for those losses, and we understand it impacted the community in Columbia and the whole state very, very gravely.
Advocates are asking that Governor Parson grant Johnson clemency by Tuesday, amending his sentence to life without the possibility of parole. And while many are fighting to save Johnson's life, there are several Missourians that believe Johnson should be executed for taking the lives of Mary Bratcher, Fred Jones, and Mabel Scruggs.
And Ernest Johnson's murders have bounced around the court system for more than 25 years. ABC 17's news anchor Lucas Geisler takes us through the major moments of this case.
Boone County woke up on February 13, 1994, with 3 fewer people. Law enforcement found Mary Bratcher, Fred Jones, and Mabel Scruggs dead at the Casey's store on Rice Road in Ballinger Lane. It kicked off a search throughout the city for who had killed the 3 and robbed the store. Later that day, officers questioned Ernest Lee Johnson about the deaths. They arrested him for the murders after comments he made about possibly being there that night. A jury convicted him in 1995 and sentenced him to death. But Johnson would be back in front of a jury on the issue of his punishment 2 more times, once in 1998 and again in 2006. The Supreme Court reversing his death sentence over the presentation of evidence on his intellectual disability. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional for states to give people with mental disabilities the death penalty. The Missouri Supreme Court's Judge Ronnie White wrote in 2003, quote, "Missouri cannot execute a person who is mentally deficient. Johnson has shown that ample evidence was available, but not sufficiently presented, establishing that his mental capacity is questionable," end quote. The 2006 jury still gave him the death penalty, and Johnson faced execution on November 3rd, 2015.
Breaking news on ABC 17 News at 10. Right now, the execution for a convicted Columbia killer is on hold.
Justice Samuel Alito sent the case back to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals for review, asking them to review whether Johnson had a legitimate claim that lethal injection would cause severe and painful seizures.
Just hours before he was set to die, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in. It said lower courts needed to further explore a new issue with Johnson, whether scarring on his brain would cause painful seizures when given lethal injection. Instead, Johnson wanted execution by nitrogen gas, which no state has ever used before. Those claims led him to the doorstep of the U.S. Supreme Court. But in 2020, the court decided in a different death penalty case that death row inmates could not force a state to use an untried execution method. Eventually, the high court turned down Johnson's case. A majority of justices would not let him go back and ask instead that the state kill him by firing squad. Justice Sonia Sotomayor disagreed and wanted to give Johnson another shot. She wrote, quote, "Missouri is now free to execute Johnson in a manner that, at this stage of the litigation, we must assume will be akin to torture, given his unique medical condition," end quote. The Missouri Supreme Court also rejected what might be Johnson's last chance at avoiding lethal injection in August. The court said Johnson's evidence of a mental handicap was not convincing enough to stop the execution. Reporting in Columbia, Lucas Geisler, ABC 17 News.
You can stay updated on this story as we'll be following it throughout the next few days. Updates will also be posted online at abc17news.com. In a crime alert tonight, Jefferson City Police are searching for a suspect after finding multiple people wounded late last night. Officers responded just before midnight to the 200 block of Commercial Way after reports of a disturbance involving multiple subjects and the use of firearms. When they arrived, they found a large group, including several covered in blood. A 20-year-old man was found with multiple stab wounds. He was taken to the hospital for treatment, and his condition is still unknown. 2 other people were found with injuries, both declining medical treatment. JCPD said in a news release, because of the lack of cooperation from the injured, no arrests have been made. Police are asking for anyone with information to contact the Jefferson City Police or Crime Stoppers. This weekend, we saw above-average temperatures and a lot of rainfall. ABC 17's Storm Track forecaster Chance Gotch is looking at the homecoming week forecast from our Weather Center tonight. And Chance, what's the start of this week have in store for us?
Well, tomorrow we're going to be pretty beautiful out. We're going to see temperatures back into the mid-70s, so you're going to want to get out and about, Chanel, because those days aren't really here to stay for a while here. We're going to see temperatures back up to the 80s by the end of the weekend. But right now, those winds coming out of the west, northwest, that's what's going to be cooling us down throughout the overnight hours. We're seeing winds pretty much in that 4 to 8 mile per hour range. That's going to continue to shift more from the north as we go throughout the overnight hours. Now temperatures in the mid to lower 60s. Here in Columbia, we're sitting at 66 degrees as we start going a little bit further west. Boonville, 68 degrees, cooling down a little slower. And northwest of that, Brunswick, 63 degrees. We're going to continue to fall down into the mid 50s for the overnight low. Now, as you're heading out the door tomorrow, you're going to want to have some sunglasses on hand because we're going to be mostly sunny, and maybe a hoodie for the morning because it's going to be a little bit chilly with those temperatures starting out in the mid to upper 50s. Now, like I said, those temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. 6 a.m. looking at 56 degrees. Going to be mostly clear. All that cloud cover we saw today is pushed out to the east. 8 a.m. 55 degrees and 10 a.m. 65 degrees. Going to continue that warming trend all the way up until 75 degrees by the afternoon. Mostly sunny, pretty comfortable out. Winds coming out of the north predominantly at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And those average temperatures going to be sitting in the lower to mid 70s. Going to be hitting that mark until we get to Thursday, where we start to see a warming trend all the way back up into the lower to mid 80s once again here in central Missouri. And we are tracking the chances of some showers Tuesday through Thursday. Those are going to mostly be in the afternoon. Not going to see too much rainfall with these storms, just a little bit back on the backside of the low pressure system. But Friday and Saturday, looking back into the 80s, so it's going to be a little bit warmer for the football games, Friday night high school football and Saturday Mizzou's homecoming game. Going to be a high of 84 degrees.
The Columbia Senior Center celebrated its 25th anniversary at their current location today after it was postponed last year due to the pandemic. There was an open house from 2 to 4 at the location on Business Loop. Spokesman for the Senior Center, Lee Weinrich, told us that the center has activities for all ages, including the center's meal program. Weinrich also talks us through how COVID-19 has impacted the center.
We began to gradually open up. I mean, we did our contact tracing, etc., wearing a mask. But as more and more people are vaccinated, and especially the older age group, we've basically said, do what's comfortable for you. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, don't.
The University of Missouri's 2021 Homecoming Week is in full swing tonight. Some old and some new traditions took place today. This year marked the first year of the dome lighting tradition, as you can see on your screen now. Attendees were treated to some live music and free giveaways. Also taking place today was the banner competition. Those student-designed banners could be found hanging on campus between Strickland and Cornell Halls. Homecoming is just getting started with events planned throughout the week. A full list can be found on our website at abc17news.com.
Just ahead on ABC 17 News at 10, where the news comes first.
A pipeline leaking oil off the coast of California has been shut down by the company responsible for the spill. We'll tell you what the Huntington Beach mayor is saying about the incident next.